Hey everyone, today we're going to discuss about testing the null hypothesis. In our previous lesson, we've learned how to formulate the null and alternative hypothesis through the following claims. This time naman, itetest natin if we're going to reject the null hypothesis or not. One thing that we have to remember para when it comes to testing the null hypothesis, ang ginagawa lang natin kay null hypothesis is we try to determine if we're going to reject it or not. Kasi meron tayong statement, may null hypothesis tayo, sabihin ba natin, ito ba ay mali o wala tayong evidence para masabing mali ito. In a test kasi, we cannot say that a hypothesis is true. Because for us to say that the hypothesis is true, we have to conduct several experiments. And those experiments must be consistent na para masabi mong totoo siya. Just because kasi na wala tayong evidence na masabing mali siya, it doesn't necessarily mean na tama na siya. It might be incorrect in another angle that we haven't tested yet. Ganun kasi yun eh. So, we cannot immediately say that if we do not have any evidence na mali itong statement na to, hindi ibig sabihin tama na siya. Okay? So, ganun lang ginagawa natin kay null hypothesis. We reject it or we just fail to reject it. Ngayon, in deciding whether to reject the null hypothesis or not, pwede tayo magkamali. May mga errors tayo. There are actually two kinds of errors that we can commit. The first one is a type 1 error. A type 1 error occurs when we reject the null hypothesis when it is true. So, totoo pala yung hypothesis pero ni-reject natin. Okay? That is a type 1 error. We call it the alpha error. Now, the type 2 error naman, we fail to reject the null hypothesis pero false talaga siya. So, this is what we call the beta error. So, iingat tayo sa mga errors na ganyan. Now, in testing the hypothesis, di ba, ang focus naman natin is we're going to take a look at if we're going to reject it or not. Now, the probability na makommit natin yung alpha error, ang tawag natin ay level of significance. So, we set two values for the level of significance. Ang alpha natin, it would be equal to 0.05 or 0.01. Pag 0.05 level of significance, ibig sabihin nun, 5% ng chance na ma-reject natin yung true na null hypothesis. Kapag 0.01 naman yung level of significance natin, 1% ang chance na ma-reject ang true null hypothesis. Okay? In most instances, sa mga researchers, ang madalas na ginagamit is level of significance is 0.05. Okay? So, yun. There are several steps on how we perform hypothesis testing. So, the first step that we do is we state the null and alternative hypothesis, which is nagawa na natin yan in our previous lesson. Second step, we identify the appropriate statistical test to be used. There are several tests na pwedeng gamitin na pag-aaralan natin siya as we go along. The type of test naman natin, it could either be a one-tailed or two-tailed. And the critical value at the specified level of significance. We're going to have a deeper discussion about that naman kapag meron na tayong specific test na gagamitin. In our next lesson pa naman yan. Step 3, determine the test value using the test statistic or formula. Again, meron specific statistical test tayong gagamitin. And yung statistical test na yun, meron silang formula to determine the test value. We'll have a deeper discussion on step 3 kapag meron na tayong mga specific test. Step 4, we make a decision whether to reject the null hypothesis or not. And number 5, make a conclusion by answering the research question. So, in our lesson today, magpo-focus tayo dito kay step 4. Paano ba tayo nakakapag-decide if we're going to reject the null hypothesis or not? So, let's take a look with an example. So, we will determine if we will reject the null hypothesis in the given situation or not. In this statement, the null hypothesis is the population mean is equal to 30 and the alternative hypothesis is not equal to 30. So, alam kagad natin, two-tailed test siya kasi gumamit siya ng not equal to. Now, the test value is 2.21 and the critical value is positive, negative 1.96. Si test value kasi meron tayong formula na ginagamit dyan. Eh. So, in this case, binigay na muna yung value ng test value. And binigay din yung value ng critical value. So, paano ba natin siya i-interpret? Okay, so first thing na kailangan natin malaman dito is alamin natin kung two-tailed ba siya or one-tailed. Since gumamit siya ng not equal kay alternative hypothesis, we will be using a two-tailed test. And if to determine if we reject the null hypothesis or not, we will construct a normal curve. So ito yung normal curve natin. Yan. Here's the normal curve. We plot the critical value. Actually, critical values yan kasi positive 1.96 and negative 1.96. So, negative 1.9, yan. Negative 1.96 right here, positive 1.96 right here. Now, to the left of negative 1.96 is a shaded region. To the right of 1.96 is another shaded region. Itong shaded region na to, ang tawag natin dyan ay rejection region. So, yan yung outlier part. At ang nade-determine na outlier part natin is yung critical value. Kapag yung test value natin nandito sa rejection region, we will reject the null hypothesis. Pero kapag nandito sa gitna, it's not in the rejection region, then we failed to reject the null hypothesis. So, ganun ang natin ang ruling natin sa null hypothesis, it's either we reject them or we fail to reject. We do not say na we accept the null hypothesis kasi nga pag nag-reject tayo, pag hindi natin na-reject yung null hypothesis, hindi naman kasi ibig sabihin nun, tama na siya. Okay? So, there's a difference po kasi when we say reject the null hypothesis or we fail to reject the null hypothesis. Pag sinabi natin reject the null hypothesis, ibig sabihin nun, may evidence tayo to say that this null hypothesis is wrong. So, we reject it. Pero pag fail to reject the null hypothesis, ibig sabihin nun, we do not have evidences to say that it is wrong. But that doesn't mean that it's correct. Kasi di porket wala tayong ebidensyang mali siya, tama na kagad siya. Okay? It might be incorrect if we look at the problem in a different angle. So, hindi tayo basta-basta sinasabi na tama yung isang statement. We just provide evidence kung mali siya o hindi siya mali. Kapag wala tayong evidence na mali siya, hindi necessarily tama siya. Okay? So, please remember. So, yan. I think critical values, they determine the location of the rejection region. Now, this 2.21 here, if you remember, this is the test value. So, we plot the test value. It's right here. As we can see here, the test value is on the rejection region. So, ang interpretation natin dyan is we will reject the null hypothesis. So, we reject population means equal to 30 and we will consider this time the alternative hypothesis. The mean is not equal to 30. So, that's how we decide whether we reject the null hypothesis or not. So, ano ba itsura na kapag hindi siya na-reject? Let's take a look at this one. Ito, aralin nyo na lang to ha, kasi ito yung second example na natin. Pero if we look at this one, ito yung example naman ng hindi rejected yung null hypothesis. Ito yung critical value, 2.33, rejection region sa right niya. The test value is 1.76 right here. It's not on the rejection region, diba? So, we failed to reject the null hypothesis. There is not enough evidence to say that this is false. Okay? So, but does it mean na tama yung ito? We're just saying that with our current data right now, hindi siya mali. Okay? So, yun. Again, important note, we do not say that we will accept the null hypothesis. There's a difference between saying that we accept the null hypothesis and saying we fail to reject the null hypothesis. If we say that we failed to reject the null hypothesis, we are saying that there is not enough evidence to say that the null hypothesis is false. But it is not necessarily true. It may be false if we look at the research on a different angle. We can never say if a hypothesis is correct, we will only provide evidence that it is false if there are evidences. So, yun. Mahaba-haba yan. So, aralin niyo yung mga lessons na yun. Okay? So, in verifying whether claims are correct or not, we can test them using several statistical tests. In our next lesson, pag-aaral natin kung ano yung mga test na yun. Even though there are several tests that we can do, the procedure and how we analyze them are similar. We analyze the data along the normal curve. The critical values dictate the rejection region, and we verify if the test statistic lies in the rejection region or not. If they are on the rejection region, reject the null hypothesis. If the statistic is not on the rejection region, we fail to reject the null hypothesis. So, ganun. In our next lesson naman, we're going to study about different statistical tests. So, yun, meron tayong z-test, meron tayong t-test to test the hypothesis. So, I hope you guys learned a lot today. Thank you guys for watching and see you guys on the next video.